Welcome to the read of the October 2022 issue of the Love Exquisite Magazine. My name is Lynette, and I will be reading from the Learning by Design section of the magazine for October. The Love Exquisite Magazine, which you can access for free on loveexquisite.com. So, the article that I will be reading in the Learning by Design section is titled Change. Change. In life, we go through many stages of metamorphosis, from infancy to youth to teenagers, as well as to adulthood. The way we dress changes, the way we behave changes, and the way we think changes as well. One of the reasons why we go through so many stages is because of maturation. When we mature, our way of thinking changes and our behavior changes as well. When our way of thinking changes, our circle of friends changes, and those we engage in relationships changes as well. When we shift from brokenness to healing, our mindset usually gets tired of the old ways, which is what prompts us to change. Change is inevitable. It is an inevitable part of life that involves growing up, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually as well. Just like the seasons change, people can also change. Sometimes people change and become better, and sometimes people change and become worse. Our experiences in life are usually what influences our way of thinking and behaving. If we have more negative experiences than positive experiences, we tend to adopt a negative mindset and exhibit negative behaviors. However, we can also get to a point where we are sick and tired of being sick and tired, mentally and physically exhausted, and we want to feel better. So when we get to that point, we tend to adopt a more positive mindset and exhibit more positive behaviors. If we don't allow negative experiences, if we don't allow negative experiences to control our behavior, we can learn how to not let our emotions control what we do and say. As life changes, we must be willing to change as well. We must be willing to be flexible and adaptable enough to flow with the changes. Change can be uncomfortable at first. So you have to figure out what you need to do to be able to adapt to the changes around you. Change is often met with resistance. Some people resist change because of the fear of the unknown. Most people understand why, when most people understand why the change is taking place, or the more they understand why the changes are taking place, or what those changes are and how they will impact them, the less resistant that they are to change. Defensiveness is usually the initial response to change. People might say and do things to protect themselves from what they could view as potential harm or threat to the current processes or practices, or the way of their thinking and behaving. If they think that it's going to impact them in a negative way, they're usually resistant to change. He or she might say things that they don't really mean if they think that you are trying to tell them that they need to change. This is the reason why I often say what you mean versus how you feel. I say this because our feelings are driven by our emotions, and what we are emotionally driven by sometimes is not always what we really mean. When you think about saying what you mean, think about the outcome that you want to achieve from that conversation. If you want someone to support your endeavors, saying to them, I'm not going to support you because you don't ever support me is not a way to get what you really want. It's usually not what you really mean either. That statement is usually a feeling. It's not what you mean. So when you state it as what you mean versus what you feel, what you're really saying is it would make me happier if you would support me like I support you. That is saying what you mean. And you would usually get the outcome that you want when you state it in a more appropriate way. So the first statement could make the person either distance themselves or say, well, I ain't going to support you then. If you say, well, I ain't never supporting you because you don't support me, or whatever, they might say, well, it's going to get a negative response because it was a negative statement. So you have to think more positively if you want a positive outcome. That's basically what I'm saying. So the first statement could make the person distance themselves from you and make them feel like you're saying that they are doing something wrong. So that's the key. When you state something in a negative way, it's met with defense because it's almost like you're saying that the person is doing something wrong, without taking into consideration that that person's financial situation might not be at a good time where they can support you. There may be time constraints that they have and other circumstances that could be the reason why they can't support you at that time. It's not always about you, so you have to kind of step back and really assess the situation from an objective mindset. You might, or subjective, whichever one I'm trying to say, whichever the meaning, the relevancy, and take it into the context of what I'm saying, and then you decide. I believe it's objective, but yeah, more open-minded, which is subjective means more closed-minded and personally to you, so be more objective. So you might think that if you make someone feel guilty or hurt, that they will rethink their decision and kind of get them to do what you want them to do, which it usually has the opposite effect. It could result in them completely pushing you away, and the two of you, your friendship might be questioned, or your relationship might be in question. So being able to identify a feeling versus a meaning is the emotion behind what you're doing and saying. So it's the emotion behind what you're doing and saying. Usually when you state a feeling, it often comes from a place of anger, frustration, and it is emotionally triggered. It's a emotionally triggered response that creates defensiveness, deflection, and you often say it's almost like you're putting the blame on them for not being able to do what you want them to do without realizing the why, to why they can't do it. You have to also take that into consideration. So saying something like, I hate you is a feeling. You make me sick is a feeling. You need to grow up is a feeling, or you will never change is a feeling. You don't usually mean those statements, even though in that moment you might feel like, yes, I do. This is what I mean. I say it what I mean. But sometimes you don't. You're saying it out of anger. And when you step back, that's when you usually hear people say, I didn't mean it that way, or I didn't mean it the way that you received it, or that you took it the wrong way. It's all about how you communicate. So you have to be willing to change how you communicate sometimes. So if you want to get the response the desired outcome that you want from that person. So sometimes when you do things or say things, what I'm trying to do is I'm getting you to understand how your words and actions impact others, and how sometimes you have to adapt and be more flexible when you're trying to get a desired outcome. So I'm trying to say, don't always say what you feel, say what you mean. And then in the magazine, I give you some examples. Instead of saying, I hate you, the real meaning behind those words usually mean, I don't like what you did because it hurt me. Instead of saying, you make me sick, change it to a meaning by saying, sometimes when you do things like that or say things like that, it upsets me. Can you be more considerate of other people's feelings? Instead of saying grow up, change it to a meaning saying. Sometimes when you say or do things like that, it can appear quite irresponsible. It would benefit the both of us if you took your actions a little bit more seriously. Stating the latter would give you a better chance of getting the outcome that you want versus saying something in a negative way. So the truth is, if you want people to change, you have to be more diplomatic in your approach to convincing them that change is needed in the first place. So telling someone that they will never change if their behavior is negative is another way of saying, I give up on you and the possibility or hope that you will do and be better. So ask yourself, what do I think about when saying hurtful things to others and then they later apologize and say, I didn't mean it that way, or you took it the wrong way. When you think about that and think about how you formulate things, this will help you articulate what you mean versus what you feel. Some people often lack the ability to control their emotions in an emotionally heightened situation. And because of this, they speak out of anger and hurt and not with love. So try to always speak from a place of love, even when you're upset. I know it's easier said than done, but try it. They usually speak without thinking about the outcome that they want to achieve. So that's the important thing. If you want to get what you want from the situation, you have to be diplomatic in how you go about trying to get that, whatever that is. People usually do not want a negative response or outcome unless they are a toxic person who usually gets some type of enjoyment from disappointing or upsetting others. There are people out there like that. You may know some people like that where they do things, they're little imps, or they just do things to aggravate you because they want to get a rise out of you and because it gives them some type of pleasure. You want to stay away from those type of people. You also have to teach people how to treat you by speaking up for yourself. Letting people know, I don't like when you say these things, or this bothers me when you do this XYZ. So you fill in the blanks or whatever it is. Never let a person get away with mistreating you. The good part about all of this is that everyone has the ability to change for the better. We shouldn't believe that people cannot change. People can change. I've changed, so that's how I know people can change. So the first step to changing is to admit and accept that you have to change if you want to be and do better. The next step is to take the actions towards being and doing better, not just stating that you want to do better. People can change for the better, and we shouldn't look at him or her with judgment based on their past. We should applaud them and encourage them to keep up the good work when they do change. Change is not always easy, especially when you have been doing the same thing for several years, same old thing, same thing year after year after year. So you get into a pattern and it's hard. You get comfortable and then it's hard to change. But oftentimes you find that those are the things that there are things that you may need to change. You might hear people say, when you do change, oh, look what they doing now. First they was doing this, now they doing that, then they doing this. They want to do a little bit of everything. Or I remember when. You always hear those people saying, I remember when. Those are usually haters, and haters are usually congratulators, and you should applaud them and appreciate them because they actually believe in you before you believe in you. So remember that the next time somebody hate on you and say, well, I remember when you used to do, oh, now you a minister now, you doing this now. Well, I remember when, say, you know what, thank you. Thank you. It gives me the reassurance that people can change, number one, and how far God has brought me from a mighty long way. So you tell them, thank you for believing in me before I even believed in me. Because people don't hate if they don't think you can elevate. They hate because you're elevating. So keep on doing you. So anyway, back to the article. Y'all know every now and then a little bit of the Lynette come out. So, yeah, put a pin in it. So anyway, back to the article. So when people change for the better, we shouldn't look at them in a judgmental way based on their past experiences. We should applaud and encourage them for doing and being better, for changing for the better. People can change. So allow people to grow, even if you don't. Allow people to grow. All of us are meant to evolve in some way. We are not meant to remain the same. So if you do bad things, know that you can evolve and do good things. There's grace and there's mercy. So you can be better. So instead of doing bad things, you just do good things. You are capable of doing that. You can turn your life around and make that change that you need to make. You don't have to continue doing bad things. You can do good things. No matter whether people say, "Are you always going to be this way?" You don't have. Nobody can control you. Only you can control you. You have to let God lead you though. So instead of worrying about how other people feel about you, or start focusing on how God feels about you and how you feel about yourself. If you look in the mirror at your inner self and you can honestly say that there is absolutely nothing that you can do better, you would be lying to yourself, because none of us are perfect, including me. There's always something that we can improve upon, always. Whether it is getting more rest, getting more exercise, being nicer to people, working harder, working less if we're overworkers, eating healthier, taking care of ourselves, being better parents, or being better stewards of our money. There's always something that we can do better. Whatever it is that is for you, know that you too can change. So start working on being a better person today, being better today. Again, change is an inevitable part of life. It is a good thing that should not be met with resistance. Change could be scary at first, but it is necessary to get you to your next level in life. So don't be afraid of change. That is the article titled Change, and it is written in the Learning by Design section of the October 2022 issue of the Love Exquisite Magazine, which you can access for free on loveexquisite.com. Thank you for listening, and don't be afraid to change.